in this particular case, what the idea is that we're trying to move very, very solidly into this area of measuring non-religion positively, and not with relationship to religion, which is kind of hard to do given that that's how the area is defined. And that's why this particular survey ended up being cultural and social values survey, because one of the things we don't want to give the impression as people take this survey that it's about religion or their relationship to religion, even though, as you'll see there, the survey design has all sorts of questions about religion, but they're at the end. So some preliminary considerations. What I just mentioned is that most of the time we're working with a negative conception of non-religion, that is, this not religion, right? That are the religious nuns, etc. But we're always in the various attempts that are being made and have been made, there's always an attempt to get beyond that. And so this again is a way of trying to go positively at it. And through this idea of social and cultural values, we want to find out, without reference to religion, what is important to people, what do they consider to be good and bad, how do they run their lives. It's somewhat parallel to religion, but we're not trying to research this as an ersatz, right? As something that takes the place of religion. Although we are using in the structure of the survey a kind of a riff off what often gets done in religious studies to talk about religion, that it consists of code, community, cult, and creed. Well, we're also looking at ethics, group belonging, and things like that, various practices and ideas of what is real and things like that. So it's trying to parallel that. It is a little bit, in fact, it's rather explicitly from my perspective, a way of trying to get at that dark matter analogy, right? We cannot see this stuff. It does not have, as it were, an institutionally obvious reality there that we can just sort of go there and do it. The temptation is, of course, there. That's why atheist groups get studied so much, because there you have that kind of thing. So this is the kind of the context in which we're trying to put this together. It was put together by a rather large team. Many of you were on it. Were at the session. I think it's probably at least as large as the group that Ryan outlined. So I haven't got the list of those, but obviously we want to thank all those people because they've done a lot of excellent work. So again, with as far as the survey is concerned, the operationalization of this idea was to formulate questions without reference to things religious or even seemingly or in any kind of explicit way religious, but also, of course, as I said, at the end of the survey, when all is done, then we want to know people's orientation to religion, to religious, so that we can do the comparison. So many months of discussion. We are about, I'd say, 6 months behind where Ryan and his team are for various reasons. Some of them have to do with just being slow. Others have to do with holdups that weren't expected. So we've had many months of discussion with the survey research group, many iterations of the survey. I've lost count of the number of versions we've had. We've used to compose it the partial use of other survey instruments to try to get some questions in there that might be parallel, that allow us to compare with others' results. ISSP, the work of Titania Schnell, and various other things are a couple of things that are in that area. We decided to design the survey with rather explicit reference to the Non-Religion and Complex Future project structure that Laurie outlined at the beginning. And that is, we have questions that are in the area of law, education, migration, health, and environment, really quite explicitly. And what we ended up doing is kind of trying to move towards this, creating a long line of little scales that consist of 3 to 5 questions on all sorts of areas, including those 5 that I just mentioned, but also others. I've listed them here: ethics, political views, meaning of purpose of life, social relationships, personal responsibility, attitudes to science, to other people, how the world works, skepticism, and I've got a comma there, so there's probably a couple more that didn't quite make it in this slide. And then at the end, we want to know about people's religiosity, their attitude to religion, because that's of course the way we're going to identify the non-religious. We just don't want to start it that way. And then there are the usual gamut of socio-demographic questions. Dissemination strategy. As I say, we're a bit behind from where Ryan and the tracking survey is. We are at the moment about to launch a convenience pre-test of the survey in Canada. And that is principally to try to check the questions out and try to get an idea whether these scales are going to work and things like that. But we want to eventually, and even in this pre-thing, launch the survey in as many of the NCF countries as possible. As far as I know, currently we're in development in Canada, the Nordic countries, Argentina, USA, and Australia. We shall see I don't know how far all those people are, but that's in the works. After the pilot, we want to revise the questionnaire and then launch representative samples in at least 5 countries with, say, something 500 responses and things like that, and see what that gets us. Where we are in Canada, which is the part that I'm directing, one of the delays has been that in COVID, it seems that university administrations get even slower than they normally are. So I've had to wait about 3 months for REB proposal approval and still don't quite have it. But that doesn't excuse the fact that it took me an awful long time to get that proposal in. So one of the reasons for delays is me not doing what I was supposed to fast enough. In any case, we hope to have a small response sample, at least to report by ISSR in mid-July, and that's where we are right now. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. This is a complicated thing that we're doing, and you and your team have been really careful with the design of this, so we appreciate that. Plus, you've been interfacing with the other components of the project. I know that there's a lot of crossover in terms of checking in with Ryan on trekking and so on. So thanks for that overview. Next up, we have the law project with Juan Marco Vagioni. Juan Marco.